wheel. Oh, the joys. Yay!
Hello.
We are back. Good evening, everybody. How are you, Kat? Apart from nothing.
So yeah, I am rammed full of the cold. So I will periodically go on silent and cough up along now and again. But I am all right. It's nice to be back. Nice to hear the little tune playing over and over.
You miss it, don't you? You miss it.
I did miss the jingle. I might have to get it on my Spotify and just bop to it on the way to work.
I'm surprised it's not your ringtone.
I'm surprised as well. It's remiss of me. I have to get that fixed. You can't get it to play most weeks, so there's not much chance I'm going to be able to download it as a blooming ringtone.
Good evening, everyone at home. Welcome back to the Blether. Great to have you on board. Good to see a couple of comments already coming in. Callum, yes, we are not on time, as always. Great to have you on, having the Glen Scotia Festival 2026 in the glass.
Of course.
Awesome. That sure is a phenomenal dram from, in my opinion, the best distillery in Campbelltown. I'm not sure if Callum agrees with that, but I'm going to say it anyway. You've got Dutch Jura in. Good evening there. He's got the Glencadam 10. Great little dram, that one of my, as Roy would call it, a permashelf dram. And yet the announcement this week, I don't know if you saw that, Kat, that Aaron are bringing back the 14-year-old.
I did see that. I saw Sarah, who's been a past guest, I saw her revealing it on her socials.
Exciting.
So yeah, that's cool.
Should be in the shop pretty soon. Awesome. Great to see Rick is on from the Whiskey Zone. Rick Johnson over in San Francisco. Glad to see you back in the saddle, Mike and Kat, and hand over heart, Kat. Glad to see your smile again.
Thank you very much.
Love, Rick. Great to see you on board. Guys, please let us know what's in your glass. Let us know how your whiskey journey has been over the last couple of weeks. We've missed you, so it'd be great to catch up. And tonight, let's chat local. We are very excited in Inverurie to have a new whiskey adventure on the horizon. We already have some great distilleries. One gets mentioned quite often. Our local guys up in Glengarry.
Which one?
I'll say it first. We'll say it first. But yeah, I put a post out on Facebook today about our local guys, the Glendronach, the Ardmore, Glenglassaugh. Yeah, I've said long ago that Aberdeenshire should be a region in its own right. And with another couple of distilleries, we've got Burnabenny not too far off as well. So, exciting times in Aberdeenshire. So this new adventure is just the next step. I think it's not that whiskey's new to Aberdeenshire. It's been here for a long, long time. And Glengarry is probably, if not the oldest, certainly one of the oldest in Scotland. Let's see what the guys, Jonathan and Gareth, are bringing to the table. It's going to be really exciting over the next couple of years. And you guys at home, we want your questions. We want to see your enthusiasm, see what it's like. We'll be talking a lot about the decision-making behind the scenes and how we get a new distillery up and running. So yeah, if that's your gig, if you're interested in the ultra geeky side of that, feel free to shout out your questions. Before we introduce the guys, I put my hand up, and if you're following it, you might know that I'm kind of on the team of the distillery, so I do have a foot in each camp. I'm going to try not to let that kind of ring through tonight. I'm here as a Blether host, so some of the questions I'll be asking the guys. If you're watching thinking, well, he's on the team, why is he asking that? He should know it. I probably do. I just want the guys to explain it to you to make it a little bit easier. And Kat as well, if you want to ask any questions, they're probably better coming for you, so it doesn't sound silly coming from me. That makes sense. Sometimes I try and over-explain things. Well, stop me chatting. Let's get the guys on and onto the screen. So, good evening, guys.
Evening.
We've got Jonathan, our founder, and Gareth, our operations director. Gareth has been on before in a previous kind of role, which is great to have you back, Gareth. Jonathan, you are a Blether virgin, so great to see you in the room and chatting to us. So I guess we started to start. Jonathan, as kind of the visionary behind Inverurie Distillery or Inverurie Distillery Company, what was it that twigged? Where's the seed? Where was that planted?
It was seeing the building. I simply was, one night surfing the net, looking for a project, looking for something to do, looking for a building that's interesting, and I came across the Fetternear Steading online. And the next morning, I drove up to Scotland, met David Fife, the owner, discussed with him what I thought we could do with the building, and we shook hands and we were off and running.
Simple as that.
Yeah, I mean, I live about as far away from it as you can get and still be on the mainland of the British Isles. But I live down in Dorset, so I drive 590 miles to get here, which is kind of a Proclaimers song in its own right. But I commute up once a month at the moment whilst we're getting through the planning and whatever else. And every time I come and I stop and I look at this magnificent building in this gorgeous estate in the middle of a part of Scotland I didn't know, surrounded by actually really friendly, lovely people. And I just think, what a great opportunity. What an amazing place to be.
We know that. Growing up here, you don't have to sell the area to us. It's absolutely beautiful. And this it's an old stables, isn't it? It's an old steading.
Yeah.
Part of it was a house as well. But
the building there would have, if this was modern day Jeff Bezos, we're the support vessel for the big yacht, which would have been the Prince's or the Bishop's Palace, which is about 200 yards down the lane. That is now a ruin. Our building isn't a ruin because it's made of solid Kenmay granite, built on a solid Kenmay granite slab, and it is quite beautiful. But the thing, it ultimately was houses and stables and cart sheds and animal sheds for the main house, and it would have supported that. So now it will become the centre of the estate.
Cool. And so how did Gareth get involved in the whole thing?
I contacted a guy who to help me design a distillery.
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
Get involved.
Yeah. Well, why?
How did you find me?
Yeah, I've got this guy, and I was recommended, and I had a chat with him about it, and he went, "No, this is way out of my league. You want to be speaking to a guy called a company called Organic, and there's a guy there called Gareth." And that's all he told me, and he didn't know the number, he didn't know anything. It was quite bizarre. So I found Organic, got hold of Gareth, had a chat with him, met him, and that was it. He threw his hat in the ring. So technically, I'll give this to him today, but maybe not again. He's technically a co-founder.
Okay.
He was in that early.
I came up and I had my ear bent in the courtyard of the steading, and it's going to be grills and it's going to be smoke and it's going to be grain and it's wood and it's whiskey and it's there and it's there and you just go, all right, we can do that. That's fantastic. Mm-hmm. And that was what, 3 or 4 years ago?
No, probably it's 2.5. It's probably not 3.
It must be 3 years ago. We had the most amazing response. You know, everyone always criticizes the planning department. We wrote into the planning department, and the building is listed, and it's a building at risk. But it's, as Jonathan says, it's granite, and it is not going to fall down anytime soon. It needs re-roofed. It needs windows and doors put back in it. But you know, it's the body of the building is sound as a pound. And we wrote to the planners and we said, look, we'd like to put a distillery in here. And I laid it on with a trowel and said, here's all the good stuff about distilleries, all the investment and the jobs it creates and the community, and they last for hundreds of years. And we got this letter back from the council just saying, yes, please. if you apply for that, we'll give you permission. And I've never seen anything as positive in my life.
We laugh about it. We laugh about it because we're both, you know, Gareth is an architect and previous as an architect, and myself, I've been property developing and doing all sorts. This project is, and the estate particularly, and the guy who owns the estate, we say it's a gift that doesn't stop giving, because every time what we have in abundance is space. There's no constraint. So when we go, in the future, we're going to need 10 more warehouses, you know, to fill up with casks, you know, as ambitious as we are. He goes, well, you could put them over there. And then we draw it in and we work it out. And it just is an amazing project to work on. But also some of the characters we've met, you know, we've had a roofer who I don't know what he spoke. I mean, it's a dialect. It was a dialect of Scottish. I reckon I got 2 out of 10 words, and I smiled and nodded. And then the Lloyd, who's an electrical contractor, was next, and with him I got 6 out of 10 words, but 3 of them were technical words related, like plug or socket or light bulb. So that I kind of got them, but I didn't get any of the others. So I'm having to learn a whole new dialect as well. I'm not
sure if Doric's on Duolingo, is it, Kat? Do you know?
I don't know what it is, but hearing that made me laugh, because I had a guy in from somewhere in the north of England the other day, and he had a really strong accent. It was so strong that I was like, I don't know if he's speaking English. And he kept trying to tell me that he'd been to a distillery the day before. He did a bottle of your own with us. And then he was trying to tell me he went to this distillery yesterday, and it wasn't the same because they had like the fake cask in the VC.
Okay.
You know.
Yeah.
And he mentioned this story a couple of times when I was with him in the warehouse, and he kept saying, you know, Glendulloch down road. And I was like, I don't know. I don't know what you're saying. So I kind of went, yeah. And then he kept going back to it. He's like, you'll know them down the road, Glendulloch. And then Glendronach. It was Glendronach. We got there eventually, but oh my God. I was like, wow, I don't know what he's saying. So yes, I understand how difficult a regional dialect can be. But,
it's nothing. The difficulty of understanding it is nothing in comparison to going to parts of Wales.
Well, they have their own language. That generally they're allowed to be misunderstood.
They do it on purpose. They do it just to upset us. I think the English, they really
don't get racist, Jonathan. Don't get racist.
I'm not. I'm being, you know, but myself about the joke, aren't I? But you know, it's yeah. I'm sure when the English aren't there, they all just speak normal English. And anyway, there you go.
You haven't been to the Western Isles when it's all Gaelic.
Exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Or France, where they, you know, hate everyone that doesn't speak French. So yeah, I think we're.
I've been on Duolingo for I'm on day 989 of learning to speak French, and I haven't got a clue.
It's such a beautiful.
Tell your French joke though.
What the? So I'm not going to do it in French because you might miss it. But there's an English cat and a French cat decide to have a swimming race across the channel, and the English cat is in Dover, shouts 1, 2, 3, dives in and starts swimming towards France. And the French cat is in Calais, shouts 1, 2, 3, and then starts swimming towards dives in, starts swimming towards England. Which cat wins? It's the English cat, because the 1, 2, 3 cat sank. Brilliant.
Oh my gosh.
You can tell your kids that joke and not get told off by the missus. Perfect.
Yeah. Maybe you should put your time to learning Welsh instead. I don't know if French is doing it for you.
Yeah, French, I don't know.
It's lovely. And I think if we all learned Latin at school still, we'd all be able to speak French, Italian, and Spanish by now, but I
learned Latin at school, and at year 3 was told I didn't have to learn it anymore. There was no point. And in the same year, my geography teacher wrote on my school report to my parents, "Your son's geography is so appalling, I'm surprised he can find his way home at night."
That's harsh.
Yeah.
That's harsh.
So
it was really harsh, I thought.
What you're seeing now is, it's like Eric and Ernie. I'm the straight man.
Yeah.
And he's the ringmaster. So when we have one of these community meetings that we've had over and over the last few weeks and months, Jonathan's got like 200 people around him and he's entertaining them all. And I've usually got a technical geek who I'm explaining what goes where out the back. And I've got 2 or 3 guys who are intent on the detail.
I remember
he's keeping everyone busy.
The first open day that we had up at the site, and I turned up. Kat, I think you were just a wee bit behind us, but me and Annette and Tony came up.
And I met your little boy was there.
Yeah, we took the family up.
What a sweetheart. He's lovely.
He's fingers crossed. He went down all right. I just had to go up and have a word before we went live, but that's rude. He's fine. But we came up, and you, Jonathan, you were doing the kind of walk around, and it was Andrew, little brown dog, was straight into Gareth, and he's just like, "How are you going to do this? What size is this? How long are you running this for?" Blah blah. And Jonathan was just like, "I'm going to leave that to you." And off it was just like Jonathan. It was literally like this. When you go into Europe and there's a guy with an umbrella, the tour guide. That was Jonathan. Yeah. And the horde followed him, and it was just like you said, that 2 guys with you saying. So and I overheard Andrew, and what a grilling he was giving you, and it's like, we're like,
but what if it freezes?
It's like 3 months old.
I think what's really interesting about that building, and it was on the market it was up for sale for quite a long time, and it previously had planning permission to be turned into a management centre and a small accommodation hotel block where the big warehouses are. And, when because of the shape of it, it doesn't work as a conversion to housing or flats. It doesn't work as a conversion to maybe an office, but really not. So what can you use it for? And when you take somebody there for the first time and go, and it lends itself to what we decided, this is going to be a distillery. And this is where the grist mill will go, and this is where the mash tun will go, and the fermenters will go, and the low wine still, and the spirit still, and the spirit safe, and it all fits in this line. And this is where the new make spirit casks will start their journey in fermenting. And this is when I or Gareth explains that to you on site, all of a sudden it clicks, and you can't see it being anything else. Mm-hmm. It can't become anything else, because you then go, no one's going to put animals in here. It wouldn't even be good as it was originally designed as a stables, because the welfare of horses now, they've gone from being work vehicles to leisure vehicles, and It's not an old van. A horse now is an Aston Martin that gets a better stable than the owners get a bedroom, you know. And this now, the more we say it and the more people we say it and the more people repeat it, there's this mantra that is what it's going to become. You know, it will at some point. There will be a handmade artisan copper beautiful set of stills in that building making, you know, single malt whiskey, and that will go into a shed and come out a few years later, and we'll all sit there. Everyone who's online's invited. They all can come along and we'll try it, and just it will be amazing. And this is the start of it, and it's the most challenging but also the most exciting thing I've ever worked on. Mm-hmm. Bearing in mind, one of the things I worked on at the very beginning of my career was I organised the first World AIDS Day concert for the original Princess of Wales at Wembley with George Michael. That was pretty exciting when you're 20, but this is nothing in comparison to this, because this is really real. It will be really earthy and sit in the middle of a community, and so it's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, you hinted at it there. I was going to ask you, what's your background, Jonathan? What was it? You said you were scrolling through the internet looking for,
Well, I've been looking for other stuff for about half an hour, got bored and started looking for a building.
Probably looking at cats on YouTube or something like that. Yeah,
that's it. Skateboarding bulldogs. Yeah. So what did I do? I got expelled from school after I argued it was a chemistry experiment, but I got caught tipping 2.5 litres of potassium permanganate into the school swimming pool. And that was my last day at school. I was marched off the premises, never to return. And I then went to work. I had a succession of companies from building houses, property developing, which is building houses. I've had Michelin star restaurants. I've had award-winning pubs. I set myself a task of selling the best steak and chips in the world, which involved buying a whole herd of English Longhorns in Somerset, which led me moving my family to Somerset to start a cider company. We made cider, we made Calvados, made cider vinegar, apple juice, planted acres and acres of apple trees. And what else have I done? Sales, marketing, design. I've had a kind of a varied career, and I've done a bit of everything, but it seems that all my skills were necessarily transferable, and they've brought me to this point where the only two things I don't understand about how to make this and deliver this project is designing the stills, which is now completely in Gareth's hands, who knows exactly what to do, and making whiskey, which will be Gareth, and soon to be announced master distiller. And when we tell everybody, it won't be today, but when we tell everybody who he is, it just tops off the whole. It's a cherry on the cake. But yeah, I've had to go at everything, and I've enjoyed everything I've done. But this is really challenging, and it's really it's a legacy project, because once this starts making whiskey, it's never going to stop. And when I'm not here, there is a kid who's sitting in Kemnay Academy at the moment who will end up being the managing director or the chairman or the head brewer or the head distiller. That all those people can come through from the local community and learn and grow with it and make this business last forever, because it makes something that's truly valuable, and it will always make that now. Once it starts, it will never stop.
So maybe Gareth could tell us a little bit about what production is going to look like. Do I remember from the last chat, Gareth, that you have some experience in distilling, or were you studying?
Yeah, so I was an architect for 30 years, and for the last 15 of those, I was just building distilleries. So Lindores Abbey Distillery is one of mine. Ardnamurchan was the first one we did. We did the still in the lighthouse in Benbecula, if you've seen that. We've worked on the first heat pump distillery we designed in County Galway, the first ever zero heat loss distillery. So I specialize in eco distilling, low carbon distilling, low energy distilling, however you want to put it. But when Jonathan got in touch, he asked if it could be done, and we did it at Nean. We did it at Nean about 12 years ago. We designed it at Nean, and it's just the same. If you can picture it at Nean, the little courtyard. And in Nean, what we did is we had to raise the roof. It was much lower than the building that we've got. So we had to raise the roof, but once we'd raised the roof, we could put the stills in. And I did the foundation course at the College of Brewing and Distilling. So I understand the process very well and coordinate the building with that. So yeah, I just walked up, Jonathan said, can we do it? And we walked up and arranged the building straight away on the fly, very logical, from the grain through to the mash to fitting small condensers in there. And we're actually putting stills which are scaled down copies of famous stills. That's the plan. So that'll give us a head start on the character of the whiskey as well.
So
yeah, that's my background. I've got like 15 years of process design and building designing for whiskey under my belt. The thing that we haven't mentioned so far is the biggest thing about this project, which is it's rare anywhere. It's rare in Scotland, but I think I hope we can be the most a comprehensive example of it, is a single estate distillery. Mm-hmm. So the estates, how many acres, Jonathan? Hundreds of acres, right?
850, of which about 450 is prime barley growing soil.
Yeah.
And then we have 2.5 miles of single bank River Don salmon fishing. We then have about 200 acres of less suitable land that can be used for grazing or could be planted with oak trees for future cooperage use. And then there's about 100 acres of, I don't know what we're going to do with it. We'll plant maybe, elephant grass and then chuck that into the biomass boiler.
So that's one of the things that we're doing because, well, the process went like this. We were looking to try to be fossil fuel free, right? So you can either be electric or you can be biomass. It's only those two options. And I got in touch with a company called Reheat, and they had designed and supplied and made good the boilers at Ardnamurchan and Nean. And then most recently Brora for Diageo. And my approach to them a year or so ago was, I know we did this sort of 12 years ago, but I don't think the technology's really come on since then. Is it still the best thing to do? And they said, yeah, we're just finished doing the boiler for Brora. So we can prove that it works. We can prove that it's much cheaper than using fossil fuels. And then from the estate and from neighbouring estates, there's that much woodland that needs to get taken down over the next few years. And what people don't sort of understand about woodland is you can take down the wood, but you have to ruin the roads and you have to export it. And it's an expensive and environmentally unfriendly thing to do. So if we can use local wood for our boiler, and it's not the good wood, it's the brash, it's the branches and the green stuff, and you just pile it up for a year and then you use it, then we become, yes, we're running it cheaper than we could if we were buying in fossil fuels, but with the current political situation, we actually become much more resilient. So we should become a better bet in terms of cost and resilience. So it's working out as a really good decision. So we're quite far down the road of designing that boiler, and we've even got a building to put it into. That's the amazing thing.
And we will be cutting down over the next few years and replanting, by the way, for all the people out there who go, we're not only clearing the land and repairing it, but we will then replant it, like Brewdog. But we will do that. And so technically, Gareth and I get to call ourselves the Lumberjacks. So from now on, if anybody asks me what I do for a living, I'm telling them I'm a lumberjack, because that's a lot more interesting than anything else.
A lumberjack that happens to make whiskey.
Yeah, like the byproduct. But we're
There's
really
a Monty Python song about that, isn't there? There's a sketch. I can imagine you being that lumberjack in the Monty Python sketch.
that'll be, yeah. But so we're now.
On the bra. Is that the?
I don't want that image in my head.
Well, no, that is quite scary, admittedly. But also, it gives us this. So the conditions of being a single estate whiskey are that we grow our own barley. So we've got our estate and 2 estates that adjoin us in a corporation, if you like, where we'll have, I don't know, 1,500, 1,800 acres of prime arable land to grow barley. And then discussions have now been started about what strains of barley do we just...
Doing 100% are you doing 100% of your own barley, or are you going to be buying it?
Probably, eventually, hopefully, but probably not initially, no.
But we will. The plan is that those 3 estates, we will contract. We can give them a better price, and we will bring that barley into the estate, and we will malt it ourselves. Gareth looks at me every time I say it, but we'll build a malting floor, and we will malt our own barley on the estate. We will then.
Well, malting's a complex thing. People have struggled to do micro maltings in the past. And then other people have brought back malting floors in distilleries and actually only managed to supply themselves with, say, 10% of their production. It's nice to have. It's something we'd really like to do. And it may be a combination of all those things, but the more local we can be, the more resilient we are.
Do you see it being something like maybe Coholman, who have one release a year, which is all Fetterneer barley, and then the rest is maybe something that's a work in progress?
We've not gone there.
Not got that far yet. Yeah. But you've thrown it into the mix. That could be a possibility.
Inverurie did when they brought their floor back, from memory, they did about 10% of their own malting. And then, the guys in Crafty maltsters down in Fife, they made a really good fist of it as well. But these machines, the drying machines, are very expensive. And is it going to work? It depends if we can get. One of the plans is to put solar onto some of the less useful fields. If we're generating more electricity than we need, there you are, we can be powering a malting machine. So all of this stuff it's a big circular idea to bring everything together and to make it all work beneficially for everything else.
That brings us in nicely to the fact that part of being a single estate is that you generate your own power. So we will have a 2.5 megawatt biomass boiler, which will be enough to make all of our whiskey, heat the swimming pool, heat a greenhouse, heat an underfloor, heated restaurant area under glass in the courtyard, and probably heat Kenmay Academy, which is half a mile away. So that's going in. The plan is to put somewhere between 10 and 20 acres of a solar farm and draw down all our own power into big kind of battery storage, which we will use for all the other aspects of the distillery that don't need heat from biomass. All the other aspects of that distillery will come off that, and that can include drying, and that can include, all the maltings and everything else. But, we're early stages on that. We will also capture all of our CO2 and pump that into a greenhouse where we'll grow, I don't know, tomatoes or sorry,
Tomatoes.
tomatoes
Yeah.
and
Local for inspiration and all that.
some peppers, which we can make into a whiskey chutney and sell in the shop. But it will turn all of our CO2 into oxygen, and it will use the dissipating heat from the biomass, so it's not wasted. And as that water goes through the underfloor heating, the greenhouse, eventually that water can return into the River Don clean and at the right temperature. Go on, sorry.
I was going to say, how are you heating the stills? Is it indirect or direct
It's a
firing?
from a steam.
No, standard steam coils from the biomass boiler.
So
the boiler itself is a massive investment. It's the size of 2 double-decker buses. And it takes 10 months to fabricate I think it's an Austrian boiler, isn't it? That's what we're going for. So we're in the process of the next planning application is the detail of that. It's all emissions certificates and all that.
And it's also things like, so now we've finally decided on this, it sounds a bit daft, but we finally decided on the size of our stills. And that will tell us how many litres of, wort. It will tell us how much mash we've got to produce. That will tell us how much energy we're going to need to do it, which will tell us the size of the biomass boiler, which will tell us how many trees we've got to cut down and how many other lumberjacks that are actually going to cut down trees we're going to need. And it works all the way backwards, so that, now we've got incredible process engineers, and they have worked out with Gareth, the shape and size of the stills that will fit in the building. And when that information filters back down, it tells us how much wood we're going to need, how much mash we're going to have, how much draft we're going to have to feed into cattle, how many cows we're going to need to eat that, how much electricity we'll need, how many solar panels we'll need. All of that is coming off the size of the spirit still. And
so what size are you looking at? What's or can you not reveal that yet, or is it not
just about half the size of your haircut? It's realistic.
Imagine I could cover your biomass with just loose hair that comes off of my head.
Well, you could jacket the fermenting tanks with your sweater.
So I'm so glad you mentioned my cardigan. I adore this cardigan. My sister-in-law made it for me, and I fucking love it. Look how fabulous that is.
We mentioned George Michael earlier on, didn't we?
Yeah, well, it's not George Michael. That's more. What's the big chubby one with the? Not your big chubby, I am, but the one with the glasses that was on telly a lot in the 2000s and used to wear really outrageous.
Whatever you say now, you're going to get in trouble, Jonathan.
No, because I'm going to get in trouble because I've met him and he's really nice and I can't remember his name. But come to me and I'll just blurt it out. But anyway, in the meantime, could you get your mum to knit us some jacketed tanks to go over the fermenters, like in the same style as she's done your cardi?
So to answer your technical question, it's going to start at 400,000 litres and go up to 800,000 eventually.
A year.
But a year. But it's a 2-ton mash, which I'm quite surprised about. But we're running it from shift because we're limited with the size of the building. But the project manager that we're using the other day described it as it's an industrial project with a building around it, rather than most of the jobs I've ever done where you started by having to build a building. We've got the building, so we're putting the process into an existing character old steady.
But it's kind of back to the future. So that's becoming a term that we use more and more in as much as, really modern technology. So we've got a LiDAR 3D image of the inside and the outside of the building that is accurate to, a millimeter. And that tells us where the stills are going to sit and where the vents are going to go out the roof and where the pipe work that connects it together is going to run. Because what you don't want to find is you get on site and you've got an 8-foot thick Kenmay granite wall and you've got a pipe that's supposed to go through it. It's never going to happen. I mean, you'd need an oil rig drill to kind of get through that. And, it's so with this technology, we can precisely know exactly where everything's going to go to the millimetre. It doesn't stop Stuart Mackey, our grumpy mechanical engineering guy, coming down with a tape measure and measuring a door to make sure he believes that he'll be able to get a bit of kit through it. But, you know, that's double checking. But, you know, the switch gear, the monitoring, the technology that we use, all the modern stuff that we use is the future. But the past, that's where we're going back to. We're going to make whiskey as a single estate, and that was probably every whiskey estate in Scotland in 1950 and 60, that everything came from the local village. We will have our own cooperage, that where we make new and refurbish ex-bourbon, rum, red wine, sherry, all of the options that are available, that we have those to give us different finishes. We will have more fermenting tanks than we need, so we can do longer and shorter ferments to experiment with that. We will have, you know, our barley grown in the field next to the grist mill. We'll have our draft going into cows on the estate, cattle on the estate, along with the pot ale water going back in as fertilizer, with the ash from the biomass boiler and, you know, waste and whatever, they're all recirculating. Well, and that's what would have happened in 1950 and 60 before, you know, big conglomerates started buying up small distilleries and centralizing things miles and miles away to make it more efficient. So we're going back to the future. We're taking the best of modern technology to help us make a better spirit in an old-fashioned, traditional style and a traditional way.
Yeah. Sorry, Kat just had to drop out a wee second there, but she'll be back shortly.
Don't change her jumper.
Maybe. David Stark is watching. Good evening, David. And he is saying he thinks the fellow was Timmy Mallet.
No, not Timmy Mallet. He was a big chubby guy with glasses, and he's slightly bald, and he's really funny, and he looks a bit like Alan Carr, but he's not Alan Carr. It will come to me. I'm sorry, but it's not Timmy Mallet.
I think I know who you mean, but Jeremy Biggins. Jeremy Biggins?
Biggins, yes, it is Biggins. Get in.
I'm glad Kat didn't hear that. It's
no, I didn't say she was Biggins.
It's not a nice comparison.
No, I didn't say Kat looked like Biggins. I said that's the kind of jumper Biggins wears.
You never insult what somebody's wearing. It's just that's like
time.
bloke 101.
Yeah,
might explain what I'm saying.
Especially on live.
That's why she went.
Fortunately, she's gone. No, listen, nobody.
She can only bite her tongue so long.
When she comes back, for fuck's sake, nobody messaged that it was Christopher Biggins.
Somebody's already put it on. It's on there.
Oh, bastards.
Yeah.
So Biggins is the nicest man you've ever met in your life. What a great bloke. Anyway, enough of that. Don't mention Biggins.
Really good-looking guy.
I mentioned it once. I think I got away with it.
So David's also says so. I'm not sure if you know David, Jonathan, Gareth. I'm sure you'll know David Stark.
Sorry, David who? David
Stark.
No, I don't. But
like yourself, an Englishman moving into Scotland and taking on the whiskey world. He's, for lack of a better word, a bit of a legend in the industry. He's coming to us from Thornhill Golf Course. He said, apologies uncovered. You're okay because we haven't covered this yet. What are your thoughts, guys, on the fallen tourism numbers, drinking habits changing? Whiskey is kind of on that kind of downward spiral.
No.
I personally think it's more of a reset than a fall down because COVID gave us such an unnatural high. I've said this in many chats and tastings I've done. I think if we were to draw a line from 2019 to today without COVID, we'd still be up. It's just that there was this ridiculous spike.
The whiskey industry, the Scotch whisky industry is still growing at 6% compounded every year. And what you've got is I think now, they talk about the K-shaped economy. You hear that Americans talk about the K-shaped economy. The rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. I think you've got potentially, maybe that isn't a very good way of looking at it, but it's a K-shaped whiskey industry where the craft industry is on the up and up. Everyone's going towards single malts. Even places like India. I'm not just talking like, in individual drinkers. Massive markets are going up scale, and you've got your big blends, your PLC blends, who are having to compete with whiskey made, out of ethanol in third world countries. It's very difficult for them to compete. And so when you hear about the whiskey industry struggling, there's a number of different reasons, but one is because you've got your big PLCs saying that South America's lost 3% this year. You've got America. I was just told yesterday that people are switching to CBD drinks rather than alcohol. And then you've got your Ozempic. So there are a lot of things that are changing it. But the Scottish
Ozempic, I think they inject it in their arse.
It's another headwind. But the Scottish craft industry, if you're making it, you should be able to sell it. The most important thing is for us to continue along the prestige route and hold our nerve. I think what there is, and you'll know this better than most, Mike, is that you had 10 years ago, you had that blip of you could have a new distillery open up and they would be selling the bottles at 80, 100, 120 quid. I think those days are gone. I think that's acknowledged by everyone now. Those prices have come back down to earth. But single malt is the way it's going. And prestige and maintaining prestige, that's what we're all about. That's what the entire industry has to focus on. And the demand for Scotch as the world's premier spirit is not going away. And, that leads me into thinking about politics. I think it's very poor the way that Scotland treats its national industry. But that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
I think that in a recession, they don't stop selling Ferraris. There's always a market for a Ferrari, and we're going to make a Ferrari. The massive amount, I read somewhere that if the population of China and India if they bottled every single cask that's in every warehouse in Scotland today, they'd have 6 billion bottles. India and China can drink that in 2 to 3 years. So there is a massive market. It might just not be at the price that people want to pay. Now, the next thing, or that people don't want to sell at, the next thing is it's all about craft now. The growth in whiskey is programs like this here, the guys at Little Brown Dog, people who do something that's different. There's millions of whiskey drinkers around the world who will pay decent and good, fair money for a really good bottle of whiskey because they want to try all of them. And, they've maybe stopped drinking Famous Grouse now and they'll drink a, new release of our, Fetanier whiskey in 5 years' time, and they'll pay good money for it. And we don't need that many of them. And we're not in control. We're not a big PLC that has an accountant in Luton who goes, the Americans have stopped traveling. That means they're not selling Lafroig in the American bar in Manila because they're not traveling because of the world economy. So we'll shut a distillery. We'll just mothball it for 2 years. We'll lay everybody off. It's the most stupid decision when they've got the money to carry on because, as we all know, they keep making it. It's not ready for 3 or 4 years. When it is ready, where's the world going to be? Donald Trump won't be in power. Merkel's gone. Sarkozy will be gone. Oh, what's his face will be gone by next Friday. All of the political leaders are going to have changed. The world's going to have changed. If you don't have faith in what you're doing, if you don't believe you can ride that out, then go home because we'll fill the gap.
Mm-hmm.
It is a cyclical industry. It's always been a cyclical industry.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've been told by old whiskey heads that, the cycle used to be big peaks and massive troughs and kind of decade cycles. And now we're in this 4 to 5 year cycle where the peaks and the troughs are much less pronounced.
We have just had the biggest peak.
Yeah,
the
it's
industry's
just
ever
exactly what you were saying. 22, 21, 22 is the biggest high ever, isn't it?
Yeah. But even before, I think 2019 was the first time we broke 5 billion in export, and then 2022 or 21 was 6 billion. That just shows you how astronomical that rise was. There's always going to be a natural fallout from that, as the world returns to normal, off the back of COVID. Obviously, there's things. Somebody's sure, Mike 101. If you're still watching, sorry it's taking so long to get around to the question. He said, "What year are you planning to distill?" And Jonathan obviously doesn't want to answer that question. So.
I think we've pressed the wrong button. Hopefully, we'll be actually making spirit next year. So all the permissions are in. The roofing work is being tendered at the moment. You should see scaffolding going up in the next few weeks. Once the roof's up, the slab's poured, really we can start putting the equipment in. So then it comes down to lead time, and we've got at least 10 to 12 months for the stills to be fabricated. We've probably got 10 months for the boiler to be constructed. So it's a year lead time for everything to be delivered to us. So it's going to be the second half of next year we would hope to be open. Yeah. Can I go back to that thing about oh, sorry?
When you go? No.
I was going to go back to the question about the cyclicality of things. And Kat, it's your business. Isn't it mad that because, as Jonathan says, you've got your accountants in Luton who see, okay, we've dropped a few percentage sales. So what we're going to do is we're going to close visitor centres. And I was talking to somebody for an interview about that recently, and I looked up the stats. Scotland had the most visitors ever last year. What was the number of visitors? Anyway, it had the highest number of visitors ever. And so to close down the ever-growing whiskey visitor centres is the biggest own goal you could possibly imagine, I think. What do you think of that? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's only Clynelish so far that's closed a visitor centre, I think, as far as I'm aware. And I'm not too sure.
Ardnahoe closed their coffee
Ardnahoe,
shop.
There's
Rosebank. Tours are still doing tours, but they closed kind of the.
Yeah, there was Rosebank.
Had a lot of jobs as well.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think Rosebank ever really it kind of took off, to be honest. I think maybe the price themselves was out a little bit. But in terms of visitor numbers, we were looking back, sort of shoulder months like January, February, not that great. But we noticed that it was just pretty steady. So we kind of had a look back for this time last year, and we kind of doubled numbers. I think there's a lot of pressure to keep making money, but I think that's spread out across every part of the whiskey industry, to be honest. So, I mean, they all kind of feed into each other. It is one sort of big sort of cycle. No one part works harder than the other or can work by itself. So, yeah, I think the visitor centre is really important because you need to have your people that are going to carry that brand forward. Every time you get somebody that comes in and buys a bottle of whiskey, you've created a brand ambassador, and they're going out there and they're telling somebody else and looking for other releases and they're getting behind that story. So I think they're such helpful tools. And in a world where you have too much choice when it comes to whiskey, if you can go into a visitor centre and find somebody really passionate about that whiskey who just explains why that one whiskey or that one dram ticks the box, then I think it's just a really, really helpful tool.
I'm with you, Gareth, and Kat as well. I think the visitor centre is so key to promoting the brand, because you it's certainly where you are, Kat, Glengarry and whatnot. You've got people coming off the boat in Aberdeen in a cruise, thousands of them. They've only got time to visit one distillery, and if it's your distillery, you need to make an impression. And you get a tour. You get them in, you sell the distillery, they go on the boat. They might not buy a bottle, but they'll go away knowing that tour. When they get home, we tried this Glengarry. It was great. Cat gave us a great tour. We really fell in love with the place. They've got that affinity, and you hold that. They'll go home holding that, and they'll talk to their friends about it. They'll look for it in America or wherever they're from.
Yeah,
that one chance. I don't think visitor centres or tour guides get nearly enough credit on.
Don't get me started on that topic.
But it is. It's why we Clyde close it, because I don't understand it. But as Jonathan mentioned, it's probably somebody looking at numbers saying visitor centre numbers are down this year.
We'll close the shop. It's idiotic.
Yeah.
But
they maybe don't see. I mean, this is Diageo, the biggest drinks company in the world. I'm not going to tell them how to run their business, because I think they've got guys who know what they're doing over us.
They're clearly not, because they keep producing. Because this is the thing. It's not like we had a quiet day, so we shut down and we make widgets, and tomorrow we'll make twice as many widgets and sell them and cover the gap. You've got something that takes a minimum of 3 years from it being made to produce. So what happens in the 2 years that they're shut? They use two years of production.
Yeah. What they have, Jonathan, remember they've got another 30 distilleries.
But so what?
Johnny Walker doesn't need Clynelish today. Johnny Walker might need more Clynelish in 10 years' time. They've got enough to run it today. So, and that's the little intricacies of.
Look, they 3-4 years ago, they started bringing all these old whiskey distilleries out of mothballs and started bringing brands back just in time to close them down again. What's the point? They clearly don't. Look, if you're a distiller and you get a job working, I'm not going to name a distillery because I don't want to disparage any, but if you get a job working for one of the top distilleries, and let's just accept as a fact right now, Scotland, every distillery in Scotland, whether it's worthy of it or not, is in the Premiership of football. It's in the Premiership of whiskey. All the great Irish and Japanese and Americans and all the others are in the best case, the second division, because of the premium value that Scotland carries. If they don't have the confidence to push through and lean on that kind of heritage and that as a country, what you've done and what you've set up, then they shouldn't be in that job, and they don't understand it. And they get these amazing distillers and they turn up first day at Big Whiskey Company Limited, and they go, right, I've got these ideas, and they go, there's the recipe, do that. Because if you're an American tourist and you go to any bar in anywhere in the Caribbean or anywhere in the world and you order a bottle of one of 10 big name Diageo brands that are sold through, because this is the access to market, this is what you get, that guy's not traveling, and that's why their figures are down. And it happened when they blew up the World Trade Center. Those guys stopped traveling and everyone's figures dropped off. That isn't going to happen with craft whiskey distilleries, because they're going to make more exciting variations. They're going to make better finishes. They're going to make different types. And they're constantly going to do it, and they're going to challenge the drinkers, and the drinkers are going to love it and they'll respond. And they don't make enough of it to run out of people who are interested in buying it. And if you're making a spirit to go into Famous Grouse, maybe you drop off. Maybe you maybe that accountant in Luton should set his sights a bit higher, rather than just closing something down. Why doesn't he say, right, for the next 2 years, we're going to make something quite unbelievably extraordinary that's going to take us into a whole new stratosphere? And the reason that is because he's a fucking accountant and he works in Luton. He's got no imagination. Gareth,
Luton is getting a bit of a hammer in here. Like, I don't.
Have you ever been to Luton?
Never been to Luton.
You have to reserve your judgment then until you go.
I think this accountant in Luton is
in an office, isn't it? That's what it represents. It's a great.
I'm going to start an office in Luton.
Yeah. On behalf of the Blether, I apologise to any Luton residents who may be accountants
and Welsh people
living in Luton.
I kind of tuned out when we started doing football analogies. But yeah,
they're living in happen, they are drinking enough scotch to blank out the whole experience.
Can I? We're going to move on a little bit from this conversation. David, thank you so much for kicking this hornet's nest with your question about the tourism numbers and whatnot. Kat, sorry, were you going to ask a question there?
No, I was just because we're on the tourist thing, and maybe I missed it when my laptop kicked me off. What is your plans for visitor experiences? Is that what does that look like?
We've not actually got very large numbers in the business plan. We're starting. I think we start at something like 15,000, which is really quite modest, because a lot of the craft distillers I've worked with they're instantly wanting to do 35, 50, and head to 100,000, which is the most that any distillery anywhere does, isn't it? But the reason that we're playing that down a bit is because it's not just pure visits to the distillery. So we've got so much planned. One of the things, the centerpiece of the Fetternear estate is absolutely outrageous. It's a castle, which is called the Bishop's Palace, which is truly a palace which is standing there, scary looking, like it's going to fall down. It's got a William Wallace staircase in it, because of course, William Wallace was in every old building in Scotland, but he genuinely did go to the palace at some point. And then we started to look into the history of the estate, and it was the seat of the Catholic bishops in Aberdeenshire, and it was blessed by 3 different popes through history. And I just looked; it goes back to 1157, so it's got nearly 1,000-year history. And there's 2 different churches, one's ruined, one's still in use on the estate. So it's got all this kind of amazing Catholic history. There's even in the Museum of Scotland, in the Museum of Antiquities, there's the Fetternear banner, which was a banner that was taken from there to the Crusades in, I don't know, the 14th century, 15th century. It's just an amazing history. So we're drawing on all that with the work that we're doing, and all of that's going to add into the visitor experience. And so
they're also, sorry, I've interrupted you again. Sorry, Gareth. There are also different types of visitor experiences. So, part of our plan is to put 20 visitor lodges along the River Don, so you'd be able to come to us for as long as you like. You can go salmon fishing, you can go and shoot ducks and geese, you could stalk deer if you wanted. You can, we're in the walled garden, we'll have a pool and a health spa. You can go and go swimming, get massages, get your nails done, whatever. And then we can run you a course where on day 1 you arrive and you make your wort with the brewers, you make your barrel with the coopers. The next day you distill your own spirit and put it into your own cask and roll it into the shed, and you eat in the courtyard every night, 45-day aged tomahawk steaks that have been fed on brewery mash and aged in whiskey tallow and cooked over broken oak staves with triple cooked, duck fat chips. And you drink whiskey and smoke cigars and drink red wine from barrels that we've bottled to refinish whiskey in. And you can have that whole experience. To me, that's a really valuable experience, not just somebody rushing off a cruise ship who's got 10 minutes to walk around, buy a flat cap and a jumper, have a nip of spirit, buy a little bottle to take home for granddad. Great. We will do some of that, but we're looking at, in the winter, we could put a curling rink into the courtyard and people can come and have curling evenings.
It's not flat.
Well, once the
it's on a slope.
We can have Christmas concerts in there under the glass. All the local schools and nurseries can come in and have a free place to have their school concert, and we can, you can come and do a course in whiskey making or blending, or you can come and do, that's the red letter days that are really valuable. where guys come for their 40th birthday and have the whole thing, and they come back for their 50th birthday from Dallas, and then they bottle the whiskey they made 10 years ago, do it again, and we ship them 250 bottles of their own blend on their own label back to Dallas. It's having a more of imagination than how do I get 10 coaches in a day and get 30 quid off each coach guy. We're looking really sexy stuff.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of the ideas you've mentioned, most of the distilleries are doing. I think you need your bread and butter. I think you need your bus parties and your people who want to come in and take a box. And you also need your high-end experiences that people spend a bit more money on. Would you be focusing only on the high-end, or would you be...
No, it's a whole mix of everything. It's being open to everything. But personally, I think it would be more fun on a Saturday to have, 100 ladies standing on chairs on a bottomless brunch, waving their napkins, singing ABBA songs and having an amazing time. And I'll make more money out of that and have a better experience and have more fun than I will, 50 Japanese tourists coming through. If I can do both, I'll have both. But if I had a choice, I'll have the bottomless brunch because it will be hysterical. And it will be enjoyable. And something I said to Gareth, this is probably my last big project, and I just want it to be the most fun and the most enjoyable and the best thing that I've ever done. And every experience I've had, and every experience that he's got from his stuff, and also Mike now, and maybe yourself as well at some point, we'll be bringing all of that together to create things that are so different and innovative, and just make it brilliant, rather than we're just going to, if we copy what all the others do, we're just going to end up with a percentage of what they do. If when the tour guides are going, don't go to that distillery, go to these guys because it's incredible, that's where they're going to go. So we'll get all of it eventually.
Yeah, I mean, some of the ideas you mentioned, other distilleries are definitely doing, but I don't think I'm going to write your risk assessments if you have women on chairs and a curling pond at the same time. I'll let that all unfold.
Not at the same time.
On the chairs in the summer, curling pond in the winter. That's the plan.
No, it sounds like quite a long-term project as well.
We won't have anything to sell for 5 years.
I think we said right at the start that Jonathan is the visionary. Gareth is kind of the reins behind the project. Don't you? Just kind of
don't you be fooled. Every time I come up with the most ridiculous sounding idea, he either goes, "God, that'll be brilliant," or he comes out and he trumps it. Not Donald trumps it. He trumps it as in Ace of Trumps. He is as creative and as wacky as anything I can come up with. But
I think the difference is, Jonathan, he keeps those ideas, contained.
We'll get there eventually. That's my plan.
I think it's amazing.
Let me ask you this, right? You're on a cruise ship, all right, and you get off and you've got a few hours, and somebody says, "Do you want to go on a whiskey tour around a distillery and end up in the room where you can buy a brandy gilet and some of those little glasses and a bottle of whiskey, or do you want to go there and they've got a bottomless brunch and there's 50 lunatics in there and everyone's having a great time and you can come and join in? Where would you want to go?"
I think part of the problem with that is if you're coming off a cruise ship, you've probably got about 45 minutes and then you have to get back on the bus.
But then they're not going to come and see us.
Maybe
anyway.
The cruise ships are not the audience.
No, but okay, whoever's organising it, you're going to go to the place which gives you the best entertainment, the most fun, and you don't care. And do I care if somebody spends 50 quid on some merch, a T-shirt, or do I want them to spend 50 quid on, food and beverage and having a brilliant time? Because when they go away, they will still say, if you're ever in this area, go to this place because it was incredibly good fun. And that's the way you can build a brand, that you make people feel so much affection and so much pleasure and enjoyment to it. And what that means is everybody becomes front of house. The distillers, because they'll be on show, the brewers, the people in the tills and the coffee shops and the merch shop, and everybody becomes part of the process, and everybody therefore needs to understand the importance of making these people feel great, and they also need to be rewarded accordingly. And so they need to have bonuses, and they need to have rewards, and they need to have a smile on their face, and they need to be prepared to learn how to say hello in Japanese and Korean and German and whatever else, all of it. And that takes time. But the way to do that is to get the whole community involved and get them to be supportive of it and get them to understand that this place is special. And if I can find the little fucker who keeps our windows, I'm going to make him into a maintenance guy and get him to repair them all and teach him to care for the place.
I think you're touching on a within the jest there, Jonathan, a very serious point in what something like Inverurie Distillery will bring to the community of jobs, support, and that hospitality route as well. And I think it's reminding me a little bit of Torrevieja Distillery. I don't know if you've kind of followed their story. When they started off, they deliberately advertised on so Torrevieja is on Sky. It's kind of the second distillery there. Deliberately advertised for people with no experience in whiskey at all, because they knew that while training them, they would ask the questions: why don't we do this, or why are we doing this, or can we do this, without that kind of degree background where you're conditioned. Yeah.
Well, but also you want somebody with a personality that will take instruction, can learn, and wants to do it, and wants to be part of something exciting. That's the best employee in any job.
You want somebody who'll challenge as well. And I think that's what Torrevieja have done. They've got people who live on Skye, are passionate about the area, the tourism they love, and you build in these brand ambassadors to work for you. If you can train these guys up, you get guys like Gareth in your master distiller, your blender, who are going to come in to take kids from Kemney Academy, Inverurie Academy, wherever, and hone them in, because these are the guys and girls who are going to ask questions. Say, well, why don't we do this? I've never been asked that. Somebody coming out.
Totally, the person doing the job is the best person to design how it's done.
Yeah. I think
there's a guy called Robert Hill Smith, and Robert Hill Smith is a billionaire Australian. He's a pal of mine, and he's got a winery in Angaston in Adelaide called Yalumba, and it's the biggest privately owned winery in Australia. And when you go there, the whole place looks like it was built and opened yesterday. It is brand new. Everybody's got attention to detail. There isn't a bit of rubbish. There isn't, everything is clean and tidy and presentable. Everybody is incredibly friendly. And then he takes it to the extremes of, when I was there, this is 20 years ago, he'd just taken back 32 acres of bush vine Grenache, and he made Penfold sell it to him. And they were going to grub it up because it was at the end. These vines are like 130 years old, and the production of them is no good. And he heard that they were going to grub them up, and he went to them and said, "You can't do that." He said, "My great grandfather planted those," and he said, "But also, they're the vines that when the French wine industry got wiped out by phylloxera, these are the vines they took the cuttings from to re-establish the Grenache wine in France." He said, "This is liquid history." And they said, "Well, it's the point." He said, "Look, I'll just buy them off you." So he bought them off them. And he then went and built a tiny little wine shed. And he crushed those grapes, and he made a single vineyard Grenache reserve from the oldest Grenache vines in history, because they supplied all the other ones that are subsequently wiped out by phylloxera. And it's a tiny production, but it's incredible, and it protected jobs and it protected everything else. That's partly my attitude to what we do here, is not to is to give every kid that, when they have that year's work experience in Chemay Academy, everybody can come up to us for a job and train. Now, we will have jobs in farming, in gardening, lumberjacks, brewing, distilling, mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, maintenance, stonemasons, chefs, bookkeepers, accountants, general managers. We have got housekeeping, front of house. All of those people can share in an employee's pool of bonuses. All of those people will get really well paid. All of those people will be looked after and trained, and they can grow through. And eventually, if you want to be a master cooper, what does a master cooper earn in Scotland? Probably 50,000, 60,000 pounds a year. To earn that money in Chemay now, you'd have to move to maybe Glasgow or London, or we'll go and work on an oil rig if there's any left by the time you leave school. That's your choices. You'll be able to go and work in an industry that has passion, that has this amazing heritage, and you'll be able to influence from the start of a new company the direction of that company, and you can grow and work through it your entire life, and your kids can take over from you, and your grandkids can take over from you. And we're going to make something. Now, here's the other thing. In 5 years' time, when we produce our first 3-year-old, spirit, or in 7 years' time, we've got our first 5-year-old, and we're sitting here tasting it. If we do our job right, if our distillers and our brewers and Gareth and our distillery designers and our coopers, if they have a synergy and they produce the right char in the right barrel with the right fermented wort from the correct grain, and we produce the whole thing, our whiskey, firstly, if we got it today and we had it in 5 years' time, will be exactly the same age as Macallan's whiskey they make today at 5 years old, or Ardbeg, or anybody else that makes an amazing whiskey. And there's nothing to say that we'd be sitting here having made something that's better. Mm-hmm. And that's got to be our goal, hasn't it? It's got to be to make the best thing we're capable of making in every respect, attention to every detail, and then offer that to the public to decide if they think that's the best there is, or whether they think that's crap. If it's crap, I'll have really fucked up. But Gareth's not going to let me. He does have some control on me. So that's the thing. We're gonna.
So what does that look like? So what does that look like in terms of you're making the best whiskey that you can? So you mentioned you're going to be coopering on site. What's the whole process you're doing on site? You're not malting, but do you have a bottling line? What does a spirit look like?
We're going to grow distinct heritage grains. We're going to experiment with different grain. We're going to experiment with fermentation times. We're going to experiment with pushing the ABV of the wort out, or shorter, longer ferments. We're going to, the stills, I think, are a big part of it as well. We've got one of the most artisan makers of stills going to be building our stills for us. You're all right, let's have a sip of water.
Whiskey works better.
But we're gonna. But the fact is, simply, it ultimately comes down to passion, and there is the person who goes, I'm smiley and I'm happy and I care, and if you get that from the, all of the people that work, whether they're sweeping up, whether they're the finance guy, everybody cares. You end up with a better product. It's as simple as.
I think I'm going to bring Gareth back in here and say, at the end of the day, in 5-10 years' time, whenever the spirit is ready, what kind of drama are we expecting to be drinking? Because ultimately, the guys watching, they want to know. Some of them are interested in these details and this all.
Yeah.
What are we drinking? Are we drinking a Glendronach? Are we drinking a Glengarry? Are we drinking an Ardbeg? What is the goal?
We don't want to rely on the crutch of sherry casks. We want it to have a Highland character. It's a bit naughty to say this, but we don't want it to be a modern Jim Swan whiskey. I mean, I worked with Jim for a number of years, and I loved him dearly, respected him greatly. But it's now become a bit of a cliche that the distilleries that he put together have this same kind of modern character of spirit, which is
The STR cask.
yeah, STR, and it's maybe drinkable to the Far East, and it's aimed at them, and you know, it's we want more character than that, and we don't just want to rely on cask character. We want a spirit character, so it's going to have a weight to it. Beyond that, it probably will have a good long ferment. I mean, to drop names, I had a really good chat a week or two ago with Mark Renier, who's looking at a project now. And he is all about the fermentation. We were talking about doing a building with him that's really not about the stills; it's about the washbacks. So in Vetternier, what we're going to do is the old steading is going to have a couple of washbacks in because that's all we can fit, and then there's a warehouse across the courtyard, and we're going to put in a tank farm into the warehouse, really, with many more fermenters. So that gives us the freedom to do long ferments. And I know that long ferments, it can go bad. You know, it can turn into tear gas. It can go wrong. But if you keep an eye on it, then something like Lindor's, actually, Lindor's have been doing 100-hour plus ferments. And I'm quite interested in that when we get to the geeky stage. And Mark's opinion is, once you've made your beer, you've made your wash, you've made your flavor, and then distilling is just reducing that flavor down. So the fermentation time is critical. Yields are important to us. I mean, we're talking about different grain types there. Of course, yields are important, but yes, experiments with yeast, yes, experiments with ferments. And but basically a long ferment and a heavy character spirit. That's what we're going to go for. So lots of character is the simple answer to that.
And we can experiment with things like, you know, when we're toasting, we can experiment with different things like heather. You know, it doesn't have to be peat based. It doesn't. You know, we could there's lots of different things. But you know, when we And you look, I'm sitting here. This is yours. I'm in your place drinking your whiskey, and it's really, really nice. And everybody should buy some. But the thing about it
I'm not going to
is,
disagree with you, Jonathan.
no, it is really, really nice. And the thing is, I'm fairly new to drinking whiskey sensibly and drinking nice whiskey sensibly, and learning about all the characteristics and the different flavors, and that becomes a really interesting thing, and giving people something that goes away from the light fruity kind of, you know, this version or that, giving this that's going to come over the next couple of years in conversations with our master distiller. A lot of lead from Gareth, some from you. You know, we'll talk to the guys at Little Brown Dog. We'll talk to some other people that we know, and we will find, you know, firstly a core spirit that will be our main production. But then there's lots of ways to tweak that and have lots of fun and make things that are really incredible that people want to try on and just keep going. We're also putting a second still in that will make barley vodka, and that will make maybe some gin, but it will make Calvados and rum, a little small still. And then I've decided that we're going to put a little small, because if you come up on a Saturday afternoon, you want a sandwich, you don't necessarily want a Scotch with your sandwich, you might want a beer. So we're going to make, we'll put a little beer, a little 5-barrel brewery in to make beer. And we're going to make, I'm really pleased with this, we're going to make feta beer.
I see what you did there.
I know. It's so good. We're going to have to do it.
You don't even need to finish the Blether. You're done. You just topped out right there.
Better beer made at Fettermere, and we'll make a really nice, SPA and an IPA, and you can sit there in the courtyard and have a beer and have a sandwich, and then come back in the evening. You try whiskey. We'll have a really exclusive little whiskey bar up there for our founders. Again,
I would like to do a smoked whiskey, but it's not a PT part of the world, and looking for the history of heather smoking, which you hear talked about every now and again, but it's a pretty rare thing.
I think not a peaty part of the world. I think we probably have the biggest peat bog in Scotland, about 30 miles north of us.
But there's no, correct me if I'm wrong, there's no history of peated smoked whiskey.
In terms of,
am I wrong?
Ardmore is the only consistently peated Highland whiskey in the region. So it's always, since about 1830, they've been producing, 1898, they've been producing peated.
And they're an outlier. Why do you think that is? Why is the Islay got the crown then if other places do have the peat?
So, like most places would have been using peat because it was your fuel source. I think Islay is because the peat in Islay is so distinctive. It's got such a unique flavor. Like your Highland peat is, taking Ardmore for example, with quite a low ppm, or a Glengarry pre 1995, which is peated. It's such a subtle flavor that a lot of people don't even pick up or identify it. Whereas you go to Islay and you try an Islay peat, it's so distinctive, it's so characterful, it's so unique that I think it became almost a USP.
What are these people going to do when Redhead stops them burning peat because it's environmentally not friendly?
Well, the kind of, I think the next stage of that ever happening is you can only buy peat if it's on your private ground, and distilleries will have income to buy the peatlands and say, well, that's our private ground. But I don't think that's not the issue. I think.
Or do you think there's a chance that the whole of Scotland will rise up, head down to London, and sack Parliament and drag Ed out to the tower?
Style.
I mean, we're gonna have to organise a few buses for that. I mean, that's a lot of folk to get down to one place.
When you sacked Wembley, they got enough there. You probably wouldn't need much more than that to get Ed to change his mind.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of distilleries are embarking on peatland restoration projects as well. We're all very aware of the fact that peatland is one of the biggest sequesters of carbon that we have in the country, and how important it is for biodiversity. Even though Scotch distilleries account for
less than 2%, isn't it?
It used to be like less than 1% before they banned peat use for gardens. Now they've banned that. We're slightly higher now because they've banned the other thing that used using more. But in terms of how much whiskey we're producing, distilleries don't actually use a lot of peat. So Santoni, for example, have invested a lot of money in peatland restoration, and it's all about just stopping that leach of carbon and letting the peatland repair and restore over the years. Yes, it's 1,000 years to get like a metre of peat. It's not an instant overnight fix, but it's also regenerating for future use as well. So I mean, I don't think we're going to be banned from using peat anytime soon. I think we're all very well aware of our responsibility for using peat.
I reckon it would take about 3,000 angry Glaswegians to turn up in Downing Street to get that reversed.
I mean, potentially, but
we could just carry on and do what we're doing very well.
I mean, I think we should rock the boat. Let's not fix something that's not broken yet.
I think, going back, Gareth, I think Islay, not only Islay peat is very distinct. Kat mentioned there how long it takes for peat to degenerate into what we use today. You're talking 10,000-year-old peat that we use today, and 10,000 years ago, Aberdeenshire was evergreen forests and big robust trees and oak and all that. So when that burns, it's wood, it's cigar fire, it's bonfire, it's these kind of woody oak flavor, which you get in that Ardmore spirit. You head to Islay, it was pretty much under the Atlantic. So the peat you're digging up there is seaweed and seagrass, and that's where you get that saltiness and all this kind of really medicinal notes. And then your cup point, you could, in theory, Ardmore could create a really iodine filled, if they drop their cut point right down into that creosote kind of flavor, they could. Yeah. You look at Kilchoman and Lefroy, I think, or Colilla
or Begging. They've got the same. It's a Kilchoman and Ardbeg, is it? Same, different cuts.
Same ppm, but you drink a Kilchoman, it tastes more like a mainland peat whiskey than a Lefroy. Yeah. But the ppm is the same. It's all about cut points, and there's so much manipulation there. But yeah, you're right. Ardbeg have made that their thing. Whereas mainland Scotland kind of moved away a little bit during the 70s, 80s, and it became not their thing. And it's only now that people are kind of moving back. Ben Romich, Ben Riach. The only one I can't mention is consistently kind of stuck there is Ardmore, which is Aberdeenshire. Yeah. I think we should celebrate that, if we get to that point and say, well, yeah.
Sure. One of the things that we've been toying with and looking at is obviously the River Don runs right through our estate, and we were tinkering around looking at the River Don, and the River Don starts at Brown Cow Hill, about 80 miles inland. And if rain falls on Brown Cow Hill on one side, that water goes into D side. If it goes on the other side, it goes into Speyside, and if it goes on our side, it comes into Don side. And from the start of the source of the water to the sea in Old Aberdeen, 81 miles of the River Don is fed by all the tributaries and fed by all the, obviously, rainfall. And there's a 500 square mile catchment area. And when we open, we will be the only distillery in that catchment area. And we are classified as a Highland whiskey, and we're looking to reclassify ourselves as a Donside whiskey. And that we have a unique catchment area of water that fills our boreholes, and the river runs right through the middle of our estate. That we have a really interesting story to sell there, because, as I say, we're not Speyside, and the other distilleries that are necessarily in Aberdeen, maybe they eventually become Donside whiskies. That we're going to try and create something to give us a more unique kind of description, and we're not just to be lumped in with everybody else. No disparaging comment about any of those distilleries; they're all incredible, but they're not in Donside. So we will make a single Highland malt from heritage grains, malted ourselves, toasted ourselves. The way you mill your grain, the correct mix of flour versus husk versus grit. How long you distill it, how hot you when you mash it, how hot the steam is, how long we ferment it for, how long we distill it for, what type of barrels, all of that, including our own water. We have a borehole, 40 meters up from the estate, from and we've got the original Victorian pumping house, and we will pump the water down. It will obviously, could have modern methods, go through a UV light and micro filters, and we'll have amazing water. One of the ideas that we've come up with is that when you buy a bottle of our whiskey online and you're living in Fulham, and you go, I'll have a little bit of water with that, and you get the water out your tap, 14 people in London have drunk that water before it goes into your whiskey. So why don't we save you the disharmony of enjoying that experience and put a half-litre bottle of water from the estate, the same water that made the thing, and some little ice cubes, so you can have nice little round ice cube trays. You can make your ice cubes if you want ice, and you've got something that doesn't discolor or disflavor your whiskey you've just A, paid a lot of money for, but B, has taken years of all this effort and thought, and then you get just the best product. You get every time, you just get the best finish. And I think that's the difference from us. Because we're starting literally from scratch, we can do all of this stuff. We don't have to go to a committee. We don't have to design it and then 3 months later present it and then hear back from the people and whatever. We can just get on with it. We can say, that's really good, let's do it. And if it doesn't work, we'll try something else.
Well, talking of all things whiskey, we haven't asked what's in everybody's glass. And I see Gareth nosing away at a glass up there, looking very ponderous and deep thinking. What's in the glass tonight?
I'm not sure I've necessarily made a good decision.
Oh no!
I thought it was. It's an interesting, and there's a reason that I've actually chosen this. It's
just the coffee.
Yeah. How did you guess? But it's a flavor, right? It's a really strong flavor, and I love a strong flavor. But it's sweetened, I think, and it would be a brilliant cocktail addition. But see, on its own, it's a bit much to be sitting at home.
Yeah, I tried it at Aberdeen Whisky Festival or National Whisky Festival in Aberdeen last year, and I was not won over by it. I was like, ooh, okay, might eat it.
It's interesting, and I like interesting. But the reason I chose to have it tonight is because it's another aspect of what we're planning. A lot of distilleries are doing while you wait spirits and doing their own bottling, and I think that just means they compete against all the independent bottlers, and every new distillery is another competitor against all the poor independent bottlers who are competing already. So what we're planning to do is hopefully starting with Little Brown Dog, which is just a mile away from where we are, is to do partnerships with brilliant casks with independent bottlers. So we'll do one with Little Brown Dog. We'll do one, I'm hoping to do it with Kenny from Dranmore, and then so on and so on and so on, and actually do specials which will benefit them and it'll benefit us as well. You know, they'll promote what we plan to do, and hopefully go in character directions with what we do. And Woven's a great example of that. You know, just doing something. Whenever there are those amazing brands that you've seen hundreds of different iterations of the same thing, and then someone comes out and just does something completely different, and you think, how on earth did you have the confidence and the imagination to do that? So a lot of kudos for those guys, and all of the good bottlers. I mean, the LBD, the grain whiskey that they had not so long ago, was it an Inverurie or something? Absolutely gorgeous.
Inverurie distilled, the rice, the high rye.
Yeah, gorgeous. So that's what I'm doing.
I mean, this is what Inverurie Distillery, effectively, whiskey's up against is such a core following for, you know, Inverurie, Little Brown Dog or Dornick or Thompson Brothers, you know, all these kind of guys.
There's 8 billion people in the world. And, you know, between us, if you got all of the bottles that I'm going to sell, the Little Brown Dog will sell, that all of the other amazing little micro distilleries and craft whiskey people and blenders and people of, like, you know, who get unbelievable character out of what was, you know, a spirit and improve it. If you put all of those sales together, you wouldn't have to sell a bottle outside of Scotland, let alone to all the whiskey enthusiasts around the world, and supporting each other and helping each other. And Little Brown Dog have given us so much help, and they're great guys. But also supporting all these little companies together collectively, we're a much stronger force than you know, one big Diageo with, like, you know, it's got control of, you know, Massachusetts and every Sheraton hotel in America. Well, good luck to them. We don't need that. We will find our market, and, you know, we've only got to find a couple of thousand regular customers and we'll be inundated. Now, we can offer those couple of thousand people 6 or 8 or 12 different variations of a Fetanair whiskey every year that they can buy and drink, and they can try the next one, or they like the first one so much they'll just go back to that. And that's the truth. We don't need humongous numbers of sales to make an amazing business. We need a lot of quality sales to really interested people who understand what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I totally was just going to go back to the question of what's in your glass tonight, Mike.
I am on. I think Jonathan's on the same.
Mm-hmm.
I had a wee dram of the Foghouse. My mantra is to stay local, so I started off with a wee independent bottled Glengarry.
Nice.
11-year-old from Takara. Stunning dram. I am eking this out for all it's worth. I can't even bring myself to pour the last of the bottle. I'm on the Foghouse now, and next I am grabbing. We've spoken about them a lot, and I think for Inverurie whiskey to succeed, these guys are going to play a key part.
Yeah,
I really. We talk. I think
they are friends of the project. Put it that way.
Yeah. I think in every single Blether we do, they get a mention and a shout. They're just phenomenal. It's not favoritism. You know, these guys could be on Cameltown, they could be on US, they could be on wherever. Just what they do, they get it, and I think that's what people buy into. And I think we'll learn a lot from them.
But also, they're having fun every day. If they're not crashing their rally car, they're rebuilding it so they can go out and crash it again. They're just fantastic, and anybody go and try their stuff. But as I say, this I'm on the same as Mike, and this is really fantastic. So, and I know you don't want this to be a sales pitch, but go online and buy a bottle of this from Mike's website, because it is fabulous.
We spoke about it earlier. It's Klein Leash. Secret Highland.
Secret's out.
Secret's out. Oh, shit.
Yeah.
I got the Andrew's or Andrew Chris's Glengarry the other day at Speyside. I was over for the
They're what?
They're Highland
Aberdeenshire single malt.
Yes, which is just Glengarry. It's good. It's very, very good.
It's so good. Gareth and Jonathan, if you haven't tried what they're classing as their ASN, their Aberdeenshire single malt, if Inverurie Distillery can produce something like this, you're winning. It's so good.
Yeah. What's your opinion on the whiskey regions? Are they going to get updated?
No, they're not going to get updated. I think. The pres has been set. I guess Campbelltown's been reinstated, and Speyside is relatively new. You know, it's only been around 10, 15 years as a protected locality. I think in terms of flavor profile, regions are dead. In terms of market, in terms of tourism, in terms of
visitors,
helping newcomers understand whiskey, I think they're essential.
Yeah.
And it's that balance. Everyone watching tonight, I would imagine, will be of the same opinion that you can get a peated Speyside, you can get unpeated Isla, you can get East Coast that is really salinity flavored, you can get a West Coast that is really kind of fresh and fruity. That doesn't matter. But as a newcomer coming in, I think it's I think they have their place. They're really vital.
I agree.
Johnny Walker used it. The whole of their beautiful big visitor experience in Edinburgh is focused all around the regions and kind of helping you choose your Johnny Walker by the sort of region and style that you kind of. The whole process is putting you into one of these boxes. So I don't think it's going to change anytime soon.
No.
And it can be a very helpful tool for beginners.
I was interested in Ireland when Ireland was really buzzing 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, and it was just going through the roof, and it's taken its consolidation period now. But they started to talk about regions in Ireland, and because there was only 10 or 15 years ago, and now there's 43 or whatever it is, they've exploded at such a rate that they need to consolidate and take a look at themselves. But this idea of character in different parts of the country is helpful. It is interesting. And the only downside is that it does trap you in boxes, you know, and it's when, I think it's when folk come from abroad and they've heard of these kind of cliches, and then you want to not be producing to fit into the box that they've got in their mind.
Yeah. They come to Fertinaire like, oh, so you're Highland. And they have that impression already. Whereas you go to Ben Romach in Speyside, they expect something fresh and light and fruity, and they get that repeat. Oh, no, that's not. Well, you know, it's balancing that expectation against character, against flavor. It's a tough one. And on this conversation, let's jump back to Callum. Callum's a stalwart of the Blethering. He's a big follower. So he's asking, as he does every week, what is your favourite distilleries from each of the 5 regions? So Highland, Lowland, Speyside, Campbelltown, Islay. We'll go Gareth first.
Oh my God. Campbelltown's the hardest one, isn't it?
Not for Callum. Read his
obviously
read his handle.
Springbank's it's just so bonkers. It's so whenever I take photos and I put them into a presentation of, you know, here's character in a distillery, it's all of the chalkboards and the coloured columns of Springbank and the Daft Dippers and all of that sort of thing that they've got. So you'd have to go there, but it's not the widest of jobs. We did some work on the new Winchburn distillery down there. You know,
that's the Brave New Spirits, guys.
Yeah, it's an old NATO building on Machrihanish Air Base, and it's going to be a multi-million litre new production facility. So that's an amazing.
Is that Machrihanish or is that Winchburn? Did you say?
No, it's Brave New Spirits down there.
So Winchburn, yeah,
Winchburn.
Machrihanish is North Star. No.
North Star is also a NATO base, but that's I don't know what that NATO base is called, but it is another NATO base. But it just shows you there's all of these big empty buildings knocking around.
That's mental.
So that's Springbank.
Why so many NATO bases in Campbelltown? What were they doing down there?
Well, there's 200 buildings, right? This is an interesting fact. There's 200 buildings on Machrihanish Air Base, all of which at one point were surplus to requirements, and it's got one of the biggest runways in the world. And little known fact is, when the space shuttle used to take off, if it needed to abort its landing, it could land in Campbelltown. That was one of only, I think there was one in Spain, maybe I don't know where the other ones were, maybe one in South America, but Campbelltown was one of the escape runways for the space shuttle.
Is that on the basis that if you had to abort the space shuttle and land it somewhere, you need a stiff drink afterwards? So they put it there.
And I'm sure the length of the runway had something to do with it as well.
Maybe that was the first thing on the list. Okay, so we've done Campbelltown. Islay next. What's your distillery for Islay?
Bruichladdich. I love Bruichladdich. And the maddest thing about Bruichladdich, the blue, you know, the gorgeous baby blue bottle. That is
Tiffany blue, I think.
When you stand powder blue. What did you just say there, Mike?
Tiffany blue, isn't it?
Tiffany, yeah, powder blue. See, when you stand in the shop in the distillery and you look out the lock, that's the color of the lock on certain days. You wouldn't believe it, but that's the reason they did it. And for me, back to my architecture days, you're always trying to build a building like at Lindors. We tried to build a building that had that character of the medieval history. And they managed with the brand of Bruichladdich to fully capture that place just with that bottle. And so it's genius. It just goes, it's a truly genuine story. It goes all the way through the brand. But also I did, do you know of John Lamond and his whiskey tasting courses? Have you ever come across him? He did whiskey tasting course. I think he may still do it in Glasgow city centre.
Yeah.
Honestly, it was just a brilliant.
He shared recently the open day.
Well, fantastic. Okay,
he shared it, and I was talking to him about it because, and this was something I did kind of want to come and talk to you about today. But tell your story, and I'll come back into John Lemon.
Well, I did. He does a course, a whiskey tasting course, and then he does the advanced whiskey tasting course, which is the first one is an excuse to drink lots of whiskey, and the second one is another excuse to drink even more whiskey.
But understand why you're drinking.
Yeah, and we did it, and there was one of she was working at the pot still, and at the end of the course, you have to give a talk about something that you're interested in related to whiskey. So I did. I think I'd just finished doing Ardnamurchan at the time. Maybe I was on till indoors, and I was showing the design drawings of the distillery. And this woman did it's sexism in whiskey. And we're a bunch of blokes, and there she was, and she said, "I'm sick. I work at the pot still, and I'm sick of people coming up and saying, can I speak to him, please? Because you're a woman, you don't know what you're talking about." And she put up the Brewer Claddagh bottle in her presentation as a great example of ungendered whiskey. It's not masculine, and it's not particularly feminine. You wouldn't look at that bottle and say it's particularly feminine, but it's not a masculine bottle. I thought it was really interesting perspective, and it was completely unintentional. It wasn't like some London design company had spent hundreds of thousands of pounds coming up with it. They just said that's the color of the sea, and took it all the way through. So that's not the only reason I love Brewer Claddagh, but I do love Brewer Claddagh. The other thing about Brewer Claddagh that you were saying about about peat, I was speaking to them one time, and they were saying they were doing experiments with peat from the top of the hill and peat from the bottom of the hill, and the different sweetness in the two altitudes. They could actually tell the difference in taste, which I thought was a really fine distinction.
Yeah, I love how they experiment with things, and I love their sort of farm focus and their Isla focus. And I think Adam Hannett was one of my favourite guests we had on at the tail end of last year. You could feel the passion he has for his job, and I love that about him.
He started as a tour guide, didn't he? And then just worked as well. Or he started in the cooperage and then went to tour guide and then went back to production. I think he's
amazing.
That's a good choice.
Yeah. So we've done that. Now Highland.
Oh, let me just do a wee scan in my mind.
No pressure there.
I suppose I should say Ardnamurchan, shouldn't
I? Callum, who asked the original question, says, in a good way, that's the longest and most interesting answer to 1/5 of my question.
I'll keep everyone here all night. Right, I'll speed up. Ardnamurchan's my favourite because it was the first distillery I designed. And then it was great that it won the Global Sustainable Distillery of the Year. But there's stuff that they do that they don't even talk about. Like they've got an energy company that employs 5 people, which is kind of the model for what we want to do here at Veterinary. And they have a forest out the back, which got burnt down in the 80s. And it's standing dead timber, and they've been churning through that forest. It's got no use. It can't export it. It's got no use. So they burn it in the distillery to make steam. So just really good common sense. And then the quality of the spirit they produce is absolutely world-renowned, isn't it?
It's
one of my favourite whiskies. I just love everything Arden. It's just such good quality. And it has been from the minute they started releasing spirit. Absolutely love everything they do.
Yeah. So that's Highland. Then what else? Where are we going next?
Lowland and Speyside, I think you've got left.
Speyside. Where would I say Speyside? Can it be the Craig Elchie Hotel?
I mean, nobody's ever given that their answer, but we'll have to ask Cal.
Speyside. What actually stands out in Speyside? All right, I'll give you a different answer for Speyside. Speyside is mind-blowingly beautiful. See, when you drive up from like Rothes up to Elgin, and you look around and you see the little pagoda roofs coming out of the forest and the chimneys and the smoke coming and the steam, and it's like something out of Harry Potter's, finest imagination. It's absolutely just, it shouldn't exist. It's so beautiful.
Driving back and forth quite a few days for the festival. I'm based in Huntly, and my boyfriend was working up in Speyside, and just going up that road and up over the hill road and crossing from Aberdeenshire down into Murray. Yeah. It's like that kind of moor at the top of the hill, and then driving down into just like this lush green valley. And as you see, with these, you're like, ooh, distillery, ooh, beautiful river, ooh, distillery, and then castle. It's magical. It's like how the rest of the world pictures Scotland. If they could draw that in a colouring book, it's literally Speyside, just reduced into this small region. Absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah. And then Lowland. Oh man, what would be Lowland? An absolutely beautiful distillery is Borders, and that's a relatively new one. I didn't have anything to do with it. It's got this. I think it was an old tram shed, an engine shed, or something like that. It's got a glass roof. And unfortunately, I think they probably fixed it by now, but the first year or two, it was hot summers, and it was literally, they had to stop production because it was so much hotter than the health and safety executive would allow you to work in. It was like 40 plus degrees, 50 degrees even inside. But I'm sure they've got over that now, but it's absolutely stunning in there. So that's a beautiful new distillery to visit.
And they're releasing their single malt soon too, right?
They will be. Yeah, they will be. Yeah.
Do you know what I love about your answers tonight, Gareth, is normally when we ask that question, or Callum asks that question, and we ask you guys, it's about flavour, it's about
sorry, they make whiskey as well, don't they?
Yeah.
For me, they're kind of branded.
I love the architecture, I love the reason behind this, I love the colour of their bottle, but everything has been backed up by it's almost as if, and I know this didn't happen, but it's almost as if you've had time to think about every question, and you've just it's so perfectly pitched how you've answered it.
Well, I do apologize because obviously I've not mentioned the whiskey at all, but what's really important is, for me, it is about the liquid, it is about the quality of the spirit and the dram that we all love, but the brand, and taking the brand through with the environment that you create and the visit. I think that's something that's just fascinated me for so long. In the 80s, the 70s, the 60s, you made big concrete sheds, and nobody thought you'd ever visit a whiskey distillery. Because it's just this, industrial thing that happens to be where the barley and the water is. And maybe we can get some coal there, and that's just evolved and changed. And I think we were really lucky that we came along 15 years ago when, with Ardnamurchan, they really came and they said to us, look, we want this to look traditional. It was one of the first new ones. We want people to know that it looks like a distillery when they come around the corner. But then, and they did a bit of brand building in there. And then Neon is much more remote, but very beautiful. You put some stills in a beautiful building and it becomes beautiful. And then by the time we got onto Lindors, it was all about uniting the environment that we created with that 1494 story and the home of whiskey.
I love Lindors, and I've not done a tour, but visited the distillery, and I think with that story, with that heritage, with that kind of 1494 history, they could have, you could have done that Disneyland. You could have made that, like what Johnny Walker have kind of done down in Edinburgh. You could have replicated that and said the home of whiskey. What you've done is really stuck true to the roots of the monks, not necessarily the whiskey, but what the brethren, not the Blether, but the brethren have done there, and the experience. Even just walking into the distillery, you can feel that. I think that's outstanding, and not, it could have, if that was like a conglomerate, if that was a Diageo or something, and it could have been all singing, all dancing. You would lose the heart in it a little way, but I think it's really cool.
Talking of old stills, did you see the news this week that they discovered an illicit still up on Ben Laws in Perthshire?
Yeah.
I used to live there.
No. Really?
I did. Yeah, our sheep we used to shepherd.
Was it
Ben
your
Laws.
still? You don't look that old.
Yeah, I totally buried it. Yeah, you'll see it stamped on the back. Property of cat, please return. But yeah, very cool.
I didn't see that. What was it? Just in some ditch or something? Where was it?
Yeah,
It
so
was
National
architect
Trust.
dug up.
Yeah, some archaeologists and
Architects don't dig things up.
architects in the brain.
They flatten things
Rogue
in the-
architects up on the hill. National Trust, because I think they knew there was a history of illicit distilling in Ben Laws.
Right.
Ben Laws is massive. It's one year bigger than Monroe's.
Yeah.
So I think there was like a project out there anyway. But they've discovered this still.
The thing is,
a lot of it.
there would have been stills in every town and village and Howth and Hut and Bayer. Everyone was doing it. I mean, I'm doing some work with Oxford. Do you remember the Oxford distillery, Toad, the Oxford Artisan Distillery? We're bringing that back to life at the moment. And in the park there where they are, it's this old historic barn, there's a covenant on the lease that says that no distilling in this building, which we have to buy out. But it's that common that everyone would have been distilling. Anyone who had a farm, you would have been preserving spirits. And I would say it's a way of adding value to your barley crop.
It was, wasn't it? It was the best value for money for what you had, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And that's why distillation probably started was.
But also it was supplying 5 miles around. So you needed another one 10 miles away. And that was the thing. Then there wasn't a massive industry of people trying to find who was doing it and close them down and lock them up and find them. That was what people did.
It was almost like currency, wasn't it? It was. I'll give you 5 liters of whiskey for 4 of your chickens. People.
Something like that.
But we've done jobs for people in the past who wanted to replicate the sort of illicit still idea. One, the Smar Glen in Perthshire, the landowner there wanted to do this, a very traditional small distillery where you would take people up and it would be a ruined building and it would have a still in the side. It's a really nice idea. Maybe one day someone's going to do that and actually get it built. But
don't tell Jonathan that. He's going
to get you to. You can go and collect give you a what 3 words code. You can go and get your whiskey, and there's a little carrier pigeon there that you put your money in, and it flies back to the distillery with nobody knows where it is. One of those kind of operations. That'll be it.
How are you putting money into the pigeon? Where is it going?
Well, on the little leg. You just tie a thing to its leg and you put it in a bag.
Like a little
It'd have to be paid in notes. You don't want to put it in pennies because it'd never be able to take off, would it?
Well, exactly. Yeah, we're going to have to think this whole thing through.
Like £320.
You see, tomorrow morning, I'm going to end up with an...
And then it'd fly back to the distillery. Nobody would know where it is.
You've just given him an idea, right? Tomorrow morning, I'll come into an email and it'll say, right, pigeon house.
Yeah.
Pigeons, we need pigeon house. Raise the money for a pigeon.
It's a pigeonnery, isn't it?
It's a ducat. It's a ducat. That's what it is.
Up here's got a ducat.
So there'll be, you go and get your 3 bottles of like illicit whiskey from a what 3 words code in the middle of the woods somewhere. Put your 60 quid in the little bag tied to the pigeon's leg and let it fly back. Brilliant. Who could ever catch you?
Well, this is it. Do you know what the idea is? It's just a gift that keeps giving.
That's good, proper old school, Jonathan. If you're thinking we're going to train homing pigeons,
Cat, it's like what part of a 10-year project do you not understand? It'll just we'll be here in 10 years ago. We can do that.
We've got nothing to do for 3 years while we're waiting for the whiskey to mature.
I'm running out of space writing them all down. I'm burning through paper. This is not sustainable way of operating the Blether. Just ideas just keep coming.
Yeah. I've only got one. I've only
Say
got
again?
one whiskey. Well, the trouble is, I'm starting to try more and more whiskies, and I don't know what all the regions are properly, and I haven't tried enough to.
But you weren't listening. We've just gone into great detail about 10
Well, no,
minutes.
with Gareth, yeah, because Gareth knows it. He lives it. He just started. So I've got the nicest whiskey I've ever had. I had a restaurant that I closed in Esher, which was called George, and behind the bar, I had a bottle of 1969 single cask Ardbeg, and I bought that from probably a Diageo rep who had come in and sold us loads of stuff, and I got a deal on it, and I bought it. And when we closed the restaurant, I sat down with my chef and we drank it, and it was incredible. It was like nothing I'd ever had. It was that was the best whiskey I've ever had. And I wish I hadn't drunk it, because if I had it now, and it was in a glass presentation case, it was incredible. And if I had that now, I could probably sell it and pay for the roof to be repaired. Because it was, but that's my only one. The guys at Little Brown Dog gave me something out of a sherry cask recently. I thought that was fantastic, but I couldn't pronounce it, and I'm not going to embarrass myself by trying. But I'm on the learning curve here, so I will follow your guys' advice in years to come when you say try this, and that's what I'll do. But I haven't tasted enough yet. Qualify an answer.
Everything is worth trying. It's just finding what you like. But in terms of that bottle, if it was a special moment and you drank it at a special moment, that's what whiskey is.
It wasn't actually. I just closed my restaurant, but it was a single cask 1969 Ardbeg, and it was fabulous. So if I found my whiskey that I like and that's it, I can't afford to drink whiskey anymore.
Either that or find a distillery that's producing old style spirit. I've got a New Zealand whiskey tonight, talking about special moments, because I'm going to be toasting my dad tonight. If anybody's got a whiskey in their glass, then the reason I've been absent for a few weeks from the Blether is because I lost my dad recently. So he was a Kiwi, so I'm going to be toasting my dad tonight with the whiskey he brought over. So everybody can raise a little dram to Gordon if they've got whiskey in their glass.
Mr. Gordon.
And that's why whiskey is Slange. But this is a Manuka smoke one as well. You were talking about heather and smoking.
Yeah.
In New Zealand, they use the Manuka. That's the right word, isn't it? It's Manuka.
Yeah.
And they use that for smoking. So a little bit unusual, a little bit different. But
what kind of smoke is it? How does it?
It's quite herbaceous. It's quite so I've got like synesthesia. So it's like, to me, it's a green flavor. It's like just really herbal. It's unusual, but unusual in a nice way. The same with the woven one. They do the hemispheres, and it's that Manuka smoked one as well. So it's
good. Glass Sugar Kitty lost his mum the beginning of April. So
I'm sorry. Well, cheers to them both.
Cheers to them both.
But that's the thing about this.
Sorry, can I just answer to Sugar Kitty 8 that it will be a Scottish pigeon, not a European or Asian pigeon.
A Scottish pigeon.
Are we carrying coconuts now? Just in case, another Monty Python reference.
No, it's 3 20-pound notes in a little string bag hanging off its leg.
I feel like this pigeon idea is growing arms and legs, or
we should do it just for a laugh. I'm going to get a pigeon, and we'll give you a WhatsApp code, and we could film it for the Blether, and we'll get it fly back to the distillery. We're going to do that this summer.
It's going to carry an entire cask.
Yes. Yeah. We're gonna get a pigeon 60 quid back from somewhere in Scotland that collected a bottle of illicit spirit, and we're going to film it and put it on here.
I love the vision.
I've got loads of them. Ask me anything you like.
I see you. No, it's great. I think pigeons notoriously are not that great. Like, I think racing pigeons or homing pigeons are bred for distance. I don't think Scotch pigeons are, because they can't even be
I
arsed.
don't think we can't just pick up a dude from the street and say, right.
Yeah, it's not like you'd go to Trafalgar Square and get a pigeon and say, "Can you fly to Edinburgh?" It's not. This is a
They're
whole
quite
different.
expensive.
I think the mistake you're making is having the conversation with it in the first place. But
You're talking to it.
but
Well,
yeah, we always come up with an
Yeah,
interesting idea on the Blether. So we've done everything on the Blether, from a trebuchet to get people over to Isla to
Gareth, here we go. So our first single cask release will be bottled by Boutique with a cartoon, and it's going to be a pigeon carrying this cask over the hills of Benahee.
yeah.
It needs to be a gang of pigeons, I think.
yeah.
No,
Is it a gang? Is that what they're called?
We
More than
take-
one.
You
I don't know
guys
what the
aren't
collective
understanding what it is. You take the bottle of whiskey to a secret location that nobody knows, and you leave it there, stuck in a hole in a tree, say, and there's a pigeon next to it and tied to the tree, and then you give the guy the code, the direction, and where it is. He goes and puts his money in the pigeon, lets it go, takes his whiskey, and goes home. The pigeon's not carrying the bottle of whiskey. It could be
Oh, I see.
impossible.
Okay.
Right.
It's only carrying £3 notes in a little
So
string
it can be
bag.
a solo pigeon.
I like
Yeah.
how you've explained it that, you know, in a way that we were the idiots there. That's completely
Exactly.
But yeah, that's cleared that one. I've got my little book of collective nouns. I was looking to see what the collective noun for pigeons are, but I don't know if there is one.
It's got to be a flock. Is it a flock?
It probably would just be a flock, I'd imagine. Yeah.
Maybe
don't think-
racing pigeons are different because
It's going to be a scrote of pigeons or something, isn't it?
Something like a scrum.
I mean, a scrote or a scrum. That those two.
Admittedly, they're two different things.
Yeah, but you could.
Together, they're a very different thing.
I think it
Yeah.
would just be a flock, to be honest.
Yeah.
I feel like we're giving way too much time to pigeons now, and I can't even remember why we are, but I'm here for it. It's excellent.
Nice. A flock of seagulls.
Yes. Yep. Not entirely related to pigeons, but yes.
No, they're a lot more annoying. Technically, you're the one devoting all the time to pigeons. We'd moved on. You brought it back round. You're
I
obsessed.
don't think we have moved on. To be honest, I'm invested now.
I'm okay. Well, I'm going to go and buy a carrier pigeon. We're going to do this for real.
Okay.
All of your people
I
can
knew.
vote whether they will come back or not.
The next month, I'm going to be on pigeon duty. I just knew.
No, it's going to have to live at. It's going to have to live at wherever we're going to take the money back
Well,
to.
answer me this: what other distillery? What
As a
other
pigeon-
distillery has got its
pigeon
own flock of
delivery.
pigeons?
That's very true. That is very true. You could get a
Amazon-
ducat. Estates
Amazon-
used to have ducats.
Yeah,
Amazon
Melbourne
would-
House has a ducat. I'll
They do?
tell you, probably the closest. The only it's not really a distillery, but Balmenic, Ballindalloch Castle has a
Oh,
ducat.
yeah. I went to
Not at the
Ballindalloch.
distillery, but at the castle has a ducat.
I went into the castle one day. There's a story I maybe shouldn't say. And we went down into the living room, and you go down this stone hallway, and there was a fountain. Like it's a house.
Yeah.
It's where they live. And there's this like fountain of water coming out the ground, and like a cartoon geyser, and all the slabs are up, and there was some sort of leak in in the water pipe, but I mean there was water coming up, and it was just like, don't worry about that, just walk by. We went into the living room. Incredible. How the gentry live.
Do you mean like when you say cartoon geezer? Do you mean like Inspector Dribble off Top Cat?
Yeah, well, in Top Cat there'd be a little cat sitting on top of it, right?
Yeah.
Just surfing or something.
Penny in his little hat would be sitting on top.
There might have been. I didn't spot it, but yeah, it was like that. But Ballindalloch's a good reference.
Sorry.
Well, I was going to say Ballindalloch's another single estate whiskey, isn't it?
Yeah. I want to come back to that, and that was one of the questions I was going to come back to. Firstly, Dave Harkison has just opened the LBD Glasgow Distillery bottle on behalf of your dad. So
Thank you, Dave.
A wee cheers to Dave for that, because he was on vodka and coke.
I saw that. Yeah.
So we didn't mention that, but
No, he's living a rock star lifestyle now that he's retired.
What part of New Zealand was your father from?
So he was born in the South Island in Invercargill, but he grew up in the North Island near sort of Nongataha, which is near Rotorua.
Okay. God, the nice stinking Rotorua, doesn't it?
Stink City, yeah, exactly. I've not been lucky enough to be over to New Zealand, but my aunt is traveling back to New Zealand tonight to scatter my dad's ashes in Nongataha. So one day I'll go out there. It'd be good to see.
Last time, here's your dad.
Thank you.
Cargill, that's a tough place to be from. That is a hard. They breed absolute beasts of rugby players down in Invercargill.
Yeah, well, so my dad was one of 7, and they were all over 6 foot. So I don't know what happened to me because I'm 5'2". So yeah, they breed them big down there, but yeah, good rugby team, very good rugby team. Yeah, what were you going to say? What was your question to Gareth, Mike?
It was going to be about the single estate, because we mentioned John Lamont earlier. He shared the story of Inverurie when it came out most recently. I know we've kind of had a wee flurry of news, and there was comments saying, isn't Lockleigh single estate, isn't Daft Mill single estate, aren't these other distilleries? Balmaud, which is kind of our most local kind of competitor or whatever for that title.
Yeah.
What is it about?
Well, we're not saying, no, clearly we're not the only one, of course. But what we want to do is we want to do the most we possibly can. So we want to be as pure a single estate as we possibly can. And I think that the killer app, the big thing that will set us aside is the maltings. If we can malt as well, because there's some crazy things going on in the world of malt. There's people ship their barley from the Highlands down to the south of England and back up again, and there's all sorts of mad things go on. So we want to do that locally. That, I think, will make a massive amount of difference to our food miles, and that will make us as single estate as we can. There's that, and then there's the energy. See if we're not importing Middle Eastern oil or gas from America or wherever, then again, that's something that makes us much more self-sufficient. So they don't sound like very big things, but they really are a massive impact upon the locality, the localism of what we're doing. We just want to keep trying to drill down and make it as local as possible. And that's the single estate plan that we have.
And also, again, where we're lucky is we've got 850 acres to play around in. Yeah. So, we can put an Archimedes screw in our mill race down by where the old mill was and generate electricity through the mill race. So they'll probably only produce enough electricity for 100 light bulbs, but actually, why not do it? Why not put in a ground source heat pump, put in solar, put in and just make as much clean, effectively really cost efficient and effective energy sources as we can, and not be held at ransom by whether some loony Iranian decides to close the Strait of Hormuz today or some loony American decides to blow them up. I mean, that shouldn't affect the price of whiskey, but it will. So we won't be
back in and forget what chat you're on.
Yeah.
Cat's thinking, right, I'm totally spending this 5 minutes out talking about pigeons and what they are. Oh, fuck, we're back into World War III.
Yeah. it does meander a bit, doesn't it? But
Well, yeah, that is the nature of the Blether. Sorry, my teenage son.
I'm calling it, when I get the pigeon, I'm calling it Bob, just so it's going to be Bob the pigeon, and he's going to prove that this works.
I mean, I think you need to check. I think you need to consult whether the pigeon's male or female, and then make your informed decision after that. But
my pigeon is being called Bob.
I mean, Bob. Is it your pigeon if you've taken it from the wild?
I'm buying the pigeon. It's my pigeon, and it could be called Robert or it could be Roberta, and it could shorten to Bob. It could be male or female. It's Bob.
Yeah, I mean, it's a classic name. It never goes out of fashion.
I mean, you know what, guys? We went live. We asked the guys, what decisions are we making and starting a distillery? I don't think naming the pet pigeon was going to be.
He's not a pet pigeon. He's a working pigeon. He's a working pigeon that will provide
an employee. Okay.
Final stream
of a whole new rat race here.
And I bet he's tax deductible as well.
Oh, I just saw Ed's comment there about Bob from Blackadder. Oh, I absolutely love Blackadder. And yeah, that's why it's such a funny name. I think it is from Blackadder.
Ed Friday, he's my hero.
But yeah, I think naming the pigeon has definitely gone full circle. And, we're 2 hours, 20 minutes into the chat. So it's probably a good place to draw it to a close and say, we're very excited about the Inverurie Distillery. Very, very excited about the Inverurie Distillery and everything you guys are going to do there. It's awesome to have, another Aberdeenshire whiskey, another Highland whiskey on our doorstep, which is very, very cool. And a lot of your visitor plans sound really interesting, but the spirit itself sounds like it's going to be, really good. And the fact that, yourself, Gareth's involved and you've got a lot of that sustainability in mind.
Can I just say, I don't know how many people are watching, and I might be about to make a bit of a gaffe here. But when we get to the point in about a year's time when we're opening and before we start doing all tours and letting people in, if the people that joined us tonight let you know who they are, and then we'll invite them to a sort of distillery opening warm-up where they can have a first look round and enjoy the experience and meet Bob.
Yeah. Yes, definitely. That's a plan. We'll all come and meet Bob, because most distilleries don't have a pigeon, so you're definitely.
It's very true. That will be a unique.
And the other thing is, if we get a few of them and you came along, it'd be putting a cat amongst them, wouldn't it? Oh, yes. 2 hours 20 to get that in. Come on.
I'm going to give you that one. Well done. It's been a long wait, but well done. You've topped out there. We can definitely. That's a mic drop for you for the end of the night. Well done. I like that.
How did that not come about before?
I don't know. It's good. It is good. You've got a whole brand concept right there. I'm in for it.
We're going to have to do a special release whiskey now and call it the Pigeon.
Yeah.
The cat amongst the pigeons.
You are, yeah. And actually, I can't even remember why, but I'm not sad about that. It's been a journey.
I mean, we've spoke for where are we at? 2.5 hours about this new distillery and the possibilities. Guys, we don't want it to be a pitch, but I would love to think that some of you guys at home are thinking, well, I'm a little bit intrigued, I'm a little bit interested. And right at the start of the chat, I put in the link to the distillery. And if you are interested, please follow up. If you've got any questions, you know who I am. I send me some messages if you want to follow up. And Gareth and Jonathan are always near or by a phone or email. So, come and give us a shout.
Because I think my number's on there. If you want to have a chat, give us a call. And if you want to come down on Saturday, we've got, if you're local, I don't know where everybody is, but we've got an open day on Saturday just to come and have a cup of tea and a biscuit and have a look round at the ruin and see what we're doing. And you're all welcome. Introduce yourself.
What time's that running from?
12 until 3.
Okay, I'll try and pop there.
And then anybody who wants to just come and say hi, and Bob won't be there yet. I'll do my best, but I don't think so. But we'll have Kat. But if you know, and if you'd be interested in getting involved in the project further, it's all the information's there. Come and have a chat. And I hope you've enjoyed meeting us.
Yeah, no, it's been a good chat. Nice to get you on the Blether, Jonathan, and it's always nice to have you back, Gareth, as well.
Thanks very much, Kat. Yeah.
I do have a guest for next week. Mike's going to just chat for a second while I remind myself of who it is. We have.
Okay. Yes, I am.
We have. Hang on. No, wait, it's fine. Alex Thompson, who was the visitor centre manager for Glen Turret.
Oh,
that's next. Tomorrow is next week, 28th. Yes. He was the
31st.
Yeah, okay, so next week I don't have a guest. The week after, I have a guest.
Guest is Bob the pigeon, who we'll find this weekend.
Next week, maybe Mike and I will do a bit of a catch up because we've had a little bit of a hiatus, and then I'll just get back on top of the calendar. Now that I'm back and up and running again, I've got a few people lined up, so I'll just start putting some people in the diary. So potentially next week it could just be me and Mike, and the week after we have Alex Thompson from Glen Turret. So yeah, we'll see you then.
Absolute pleasure. Gareth, Jonathan, feel free to stick around. I don't know, Jonathan, if you're getting kicked out by Kyle yet.
Probably.
Kyle's maybe forgot you're there.
The lights might go out.
I could be locked in. I'm going to go and empty all the really expensive bottles.
Right.
Thank you for having us. It's been a lot of fun, and I'll come back if you'll let me when I've got Bob and introduce him before his marathon 60 quid flight.
Please do.
Before he flies away, never to be seen again.
With my 60 quid, yeah. Yeah, right.
Cheers, guys. All the best. Thank you so much.
Thanks a million.
Bye-bye.
Night.
Bye.